Hello everybody and welcome to another video on Ragnarok Online Origin Classic. Today we're going to be talking about the High Wizard class. Now you guys know that I've been a huge fan of the High Wizard class for the longest of time, but here's going to be a quick guide on how you can build your High Wizard for now and for the future. Now this guide is going to be mainly covering it for PvP, but for PvE it's not that terrible. There is plenty of strengths in High Wizard for PvE and it's not the worst thing in the world, but let's get into it really quickly. Now the stats, the most important thing you have to know about the stats for High Wizard is that you need a certain amount to reach a certain amount of variable cast time and fixed cast time. So what you can do is, because you're a High Wizard, you're going to have very high int regardless. So you don't really have to worry about variable cast time too much. What you have to really think about is the fixed cast time. So what you can do is, depending on how much bit you have, how much dex you have, you add your dex until it is at a point where your fixed cast time is at 60%. So it is going to be about, for my stats at least, it's going to be about 82 plus 44. So taking into account that you have buffs such as Blessing, you can reduce 10 dex from there. So it will be minus 10 dex. That will save you up for a little bit of the skill points. And when you get Blessing from a High Priest, you're going to have enough fixed cast time already. Next, you're just going to put the rest in towards int and vit, and that will round up that's going to round up your stats. Very simple. The next thing you have to look out for is your global cooldown. Now for global cooldown, they have introduced a cap in the recent patch, which is going to be capping it at 40%. So what you're going to do is, for this 40%, it's going to be a very simple mathematics, but if you understand the reasoning of this, it will help you a lot later on when you're deciding on how you're going to min-max your stats. So think about it this way, right? The Curse Divine Armament gives 19% global cooldown, and for each refine another 0.5. For Sprint, it's a 10% flat, so that means that you will have 29% global cooldown from Curse as well as Sprint already. Now, how do you get the remaining 11%? One, it comes from Refine. So for if each Refine gives 0.5, that means every 2 Refine it gives you 1 global cooldown. It means if you reach plus 20, you're going to have 10% global cooldown from here. But before you're able to reach that amount, you are going to have to be using Expert Rings to make up for that global cooldown. So Expert Rings do give 5% global cooldown reduction. Sorry, 7% global cooldown reduction. So without taking into account for my Curse Refine and my Sprint, if it's going to be plus 0 for my Curse weapon, I will already have 36% global cooldown. That means I only need plus 8 to get 40% global cooldown. Now what this essentially means also is that once you reach higher refine on your weapon, you can just ditch the Expert Ring for something like an Orleans Glove later on that will increase your damage by a lot more. But in the meantime, you can just use Expert Rings for now until the refines are at a higher level. Now you can buy Expert Rings. If you don't know, you can buy Expert Rings here in the Eden Coin shop and level 65 one socket accessory selection box. You can pick this up for just Eden Coins and get you can get the Expert Ring over here. Next up, we're going to be talking about the rest of the equipment. Obviously, you're going to be using Sprint for most content. You're going to be using Curse for most content. Later on, when you get higher refine, or if you want to use 2 Expert Rings, you can switch this up for a Mighty Staff if you want. This will help you with a bit more damage, but it's not a huge thing. You can just stick to the Curse. You can switch off your Sprint for Goibne if you use 2 Expert Rings and have a higher refine. That will still allow you to have maximum global cooldown. So that's gonna be what you want to be thinking about later on. Everything else is pretty straightforward. For cards, for PvP, it's going to be very similar for most people. For your weapons, it's going to be Scale Hydra. For your shield cards, you want 2 Tara Frogs. That's the best pairing you can get for your shield cards. For your armor, you want Cornotus. If you're playing with a genetic, with a biochemist, you can go for something like, you can go for anything really that really helps. Even something like a Sasquatch will help you against Assassin Cross. If you don't have a Sasquatch, you can use any card will work. Mark eventually will help you out against the freeze. You can also use Ghost Ring when you get them. Pasana, there's a lot of options there for your weapon armor card. That's not going to change too much. For your cloak, you can use Feudora in the meantime. If you don't have Feudora, Mars, Jack, Dustiness. Mostly Mars and Jack will help you out more. When we get Orc Baby or in the future Raedric, you can switch those out for that as well. For your shoes, you can just use 2 Varied. When we get the Moonlight card, you can switch off the Varieds for a Moonlight and Illusion Moonlight. That will maximize your move speed. For your accessories, you want 3 Wraiths. I don't have enough Wraiths yet, so I'm using fillers in the meantime. You can use all Wraiths on your accessories for PvP, or you can use you can switch some of the Wraiths out for Smokey, or a Smokey card for hiding so that you can escape, or you can also use the Marine Spear card to increase your fire damage from Meteor Storm. Headgear is going to be Illusion Orc Hero plus Marduk. There's a lot of silence going around with priests using Lex Divina, so you really need that Marduk. And for mouthwear, you can use the Baby Pacifier, or if you do have the if you do have the Doppelganger Puppet already, you can use Doppelganger Puppet on the mouthwear. For facewear, you want 2 Goblin Leaders, and for the backwear, you can just use the Deviling or any other option that's available. They're not really easy to get for now, but you can use the Deviling or anything else that you can get. Same thing with the costumes, they're not easy to get right now. So that's just the cards. Next, we're going to be talking about the Mount Barding. For the Mount Barding, I focus on the bottom 2 for now because PvP damage and reduction doesn't really give a huge bonus. I don't really care about them too much, but I'm focusing on both these until a higher level for now, until probably level 29. Then I'm going back to balance these 2 until 29 as well, because in order to maximize the efficiency of your Heart of Valors, the best thing you can do is just to balance them all out. Now you're going to get a lot of value at the start from these medium reduction and medium damage bonus. That's why I'm going for them. But until a point where the Heart of Valor prices get a bit too high, that's where you want to switch back your focus on towards P damage reduction and M damage bonus. For feathers, my feather setup is pretty simple. I'm playing I will be running 4 red attacks on the attack and faith on the attack feathers. So it's going to be day, space, time, sky, faith. And for the defense, it's going to be light, dark, grace, justice, soul. If you have truth, you can also switch off the grace for truth, and that will be 2 yellows and 3 purples. And that's just going to be the same for the rest. I don't have enough sky feathers for this, but I will switch this out for a sky eventually when I get another one to sky. So that's going to be the early to mid game phase. So the reasoning behind this feather build is because that means all of your feathers will be using different almost all your feathers will be using different resources. The day will be using the day and night feathers. The space and time will be using the time space feathers box, of course, but then that means you don't have to split them up into the divine and nature, which is going to slow down your progress of your time and space. Sky is just sky on its own. You're going to get sky boxes regardless, so it's just going to be free upgrades. It also gives ignore MDef, which is very important. That's why I'm using sky. And faith is just only sharing with soul, justice, and grace, which we will be getting a lot of. That's why trying to increase the increase each tier to its highest possible, getting the PDef here, getting the PDef and MDef from soul, is going to be more impactful in the early and mid game rather than trying to use, light and dark in your attack and defense feathers. This is the best way to min-max the early game resources, mid game resources. Towards the late game, once we have a ton of these resources, then we can think about putting light and dark in attack, but that won't be possible for quite some time. So this is the best way you can go about it for your feathers. Next up, the medal, primarily focusing on the medal of wisdom. The rest is not that important as of yet, but eventually once this Medal of Wisdom gets up to maybe level 30 or level 40, that's where you want to look into getting Medal of Charm and Medal of Tempest for the P damage and M damage reduction. Enchants for the PvP are pretty straightforward. Obviously we don't have a lot of moral coins at the moment, but this is what we'll be aiming to get in the future. You want PvP for your headgear, you want PvP technique and 2 ignore MDefs. That will be the optimum one. Obviously you don't want to lock them for now. You want to lock them when they are at a higher level, so I'm just using whatever I have for the moment. For your face, mouth, costume, face and mouth first, you can just use crit rest on them, because there's a lot of classes that have high crit at the moment, so getting crit rest will help you reduce some damage from them. You don't really need the special effects. You can just go for the 6 lines of crit rest for your face and mouth. For your armor, you can go for things like vitality boost, or you can go for same thing, counter crit and more crit rest, or PDef and MDef. All of them work very well. That will be the same across the armor, the shield, the shoes, and the cloak. For the weapon and the accessories, you want magic boon for more damage, and in the early game you want either flat M attack or int, but in the late game you want to switch that to M attack %. So that is going to be the difference maker in the early to mid game, early and between the early and late game. So you have to keep that in mind when you are if you're ever locking your substats for your main affix and trying to roll for your substats. Lastly, your backwear and your armor will be the same. Backwear and costume, your backwear will be PvP technique and ignore MDef. And for your armor, for your costume, you want PvP technique and also int here. So if you're building PvE, the only difference is you will try and get PvE that technique over on those that have PvE technique, but overall they're all going to be more or less the same. For my skills, I played a little bit differently by everyone else. Nearly everything is on manual. My only auto is going to be sight because it lasts 60 seconds, but everything else is going to be on manual. I will manually decide what is needed in one situation. So it is going to be... So that makes High Wizard a very strong class in terms of agency. You can decide whether you need the stun or the damage from Firestorm, from Meteor Storm, if you need to kite or you need to escape, or if you want to CC the backlines, that's where Storm Gust comes into play. And Lore of Vermilion is a huge way to play against things like Assassin Crosses or classes that have range, because the blind is very annoying. Most people won't be using Devaruchi at the start, so this is going to be a very impactful skill. And Energy Coat is used in emergencies. It gives you damage reduction when your SP is more than 50%, and even when it's less, you still get a 10% damage reduction, and that is used when you are being targeted. So this is my skill tree. You can follow it or adapt it as you like. As you can see, I added Stone Curse, which is a very important skill in PvP. It allows you to be able to disable people, especially if you have a priest that just used his Lauda Agnes or any sort of class that has used this CC immunity. This is a free petrify on your opponent. And eventually, if I have enough skill points, I'll probably look to max it out. Second job skills could look a little bit like this. Maxed out Lord of Vermilion for a little bit more damage. Tetra Vortex, of course, and of course my third job skills, Gambantin, super important for PvP. You need this to remove Sanctuary, you need this for remove any ground-based skill, and of course Elemental Awareness, Elemental Resistance has to be maxed out, and Mystical Amplification has to be maxed out. Soul Drain, not super important because this only regains your SP if you use a single target skill, which you will almost never use. And of course, last but not least, Teleport and Element Control has to be maxed out. Now, I think that covers everything I have here for a High Wizard. Now we can check out some gameplay on how you can play a High Wizard in large or medium, in small scale PvP and large scale PvP. But until then, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys in the next one, and peace out. Have a good day.